Hey, World Entertainment, do you remember back in the day when Quentin Tarantino was going to make a Star Trek movie? And it was going to be an R-rated Star Trek movie? Quite frankly, I never was a fan of that idea. I thought that was a stupid thing to do. You were already struggling with your Star Trek movies in the new era. Why in God's name would you then go, let's make it R-rated? Made no sense. I know there was people who were interested in seeing it, but I was never a fan of the idea. Well, William Shatner has now given his answer about what he thinks about the idea of the Quentin Tarantino R-rated Star Trek movie, and more importantly, does he think there's still a chance it could happen? Let's take a look at it. So, it's saying William Shatner gives a definitive answer about whether Quentin Tarantino's R-rated Star Trek movie will ever be made. In 2019, the Academy Award-winning writer-director was developing a Star Trek movie that would have starred Chris Pine as Captain James T. Kirk, the role Mr. Shatner embodied in Star Trek the original series. Now, before we go on, what I find interesting here is they said it would have starred Chris Pine as James T. Kirk. We never knew whether or not it was actually going to be the Calvin Timeline crew or something different. They were leaning towards it was going to be them, but at the same time, they were constantly raising questions saying, well, no, we have them planned to do the fourth movie and everything, not the Quentin Tarantino one. So there was this constant back and forth of, was it going to be Chris Pine and Zachary Quinto and all these guys, or was it going to be completely different? Was it going to be a new crew and stuff? That was never actually 100% confirmed. Who was it going to be? So it says here, Quentin Tarantino's Star Trek movie was a feature-length adaptation of the Star Trek the original series episode A Piece of the Action. Quentin intended his Star Trek to be a 1930s gangster picture, replete with the director's trademark dialogue, foul language and bloody violence. However, Tarantino soon walked away from his Star Trek movie over creative differences. That's wrong. He did not walk away over creative differences or anything like that. He literally turned around, took a look and said, do I really want my last movie, because of course he said he was going to do 10 movies and retire. He started to question whether or not he wanted his last movie to be an already established property and not his own type of movie, like something he created from the ground up. That is why he walked away. But he still left his script there and wanted them to work on it. So it says Monopoly Events, Jamal Nazi or whatever, interviewed William Shatner at Liverpool Comic Con, where the 95-year-old legend spoke enthusiastically about knowing Quentin Tarantino, calling the acclaimed director a wonderful guy and an extraordinary talent. When asked about whether Tarantino's R-rated Star Trek movie will ever be made, Shatner was clear. No, it's past its time. He has passed his time, and I have. I think that's an interesting statement, that he says he's past his time. So I don't know whether when he's saying he's past his time, whether he's meaning that Tarantino has passed his time on Star Trek, or whether like he's past his time as a director. I doubt he means that. I would assume he means he's past his time as a director for Star Trek. I think that's what he means. I'm also curious as to why he says, and he's past his time. Which, I suppose, that was one of the questions as well. Would it try and bring back Bill Shatner and stuff? Maybe he's talking about when he says, and I have, was that like, were they going to try and convince him to be in it or something? Don't know. So it's saying in 2019, Quentin Tarantino joined the Happy Sad Confused podcast to promote Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Tarantino told host Josh Horowitz that William Shatner's Captain Kirk is the reason why he likes Star Trek more than Star Wars. So this is what he said then. Somebody asked me, what is it about Star Trek that you like? Easy, William Shatner. I love William Shatner as James T. Kirk. That's why I like Star Trek. The reason I like Star Trek more than Star Wars is William Shatner isn't in Star Wars. William Shatner, especially as, well, I actually like William Shatner in almost everything. But William Shatner's James T. Kirk that is my connection. That is why I like it. So that's what he said back then. So William Shatner and Quentin Tarantino have met and the admiration is mutual. However, despite also loving Chris Pine's version of Captain Kirk, Tarantino stepped away from Star Trek because of his master plan to retire after directing 10 feature films. Quentin couldn't reconcile Star Trek as his 10th and final film. Tarantino still hasn't confirmed what the last movie he directs will be after abandoning the movie critic in 2024. Do you realize what I've just read there to you? How contradictory this article already is. Let's go back up here. However, Tarantino soon walked away from his Star Trek movie over creative differences, and then they add in Tarantino couldn't reconcile Star Trek as his 10th and final movie. Why do these people do that? How do you not edit that? How do you not look at go, oh, hang on, I just said he walked away over creative differences. Now I've actually put in why he actually walked away. So which is it? Is it creative differences? Or is it because he couldn't come to terms with, I can't have Star Trek be my last movie? Bloody stupid. So after Skydance Media acquired Paramount Global in 2025, the studio reiterated its commitment to making new Star Trek movies, but cancelled Star Trek 4, the J.J. Abrams produced movie starring Chris Pine's Captain Kirk. Instead, Paramount Skydance reportedly intends to make new Star Trek movies unconnected to previous films and TV series. As William Shatner unequivocally stated, the relatively brief window where Quentin Tarantino could have directed an R-rated Star Trek movie has passed. Tarantino's Star Trek will always be one of the 60-year-old franchise's great what-if scenarios. And yeah, look, it is one of those, well, what if he did it and stuff. The fact that you would have been looking again at a Star Trek movie within X amount of years going back in time again, because that's one of the issues, is you were going to do a back in time story. And it's like, really, again? Like, you've just launched this new era of Star Trek on the big screen with time travel. Their fourth movie fell apart because they wanted to do time travel again. They were told, no, you've just done it. And Tarantino's idea was time travel again, just so they could go back to the 30s, being the gangster end of things, and just have blood, violence, and probably sex and stuff like that in there. And if that was the case, you would really question, like, how is this Star Trek? Like, how do you... Let's put it this way. We're sitting here looking at all of this BS being said right now about Star Trek having to be made for the casual moviegoers, which you've immediately failed when that's your aim. Not to make Star Trek, but to make it accessible for everybody. How would you have done that by making an R-rated version of Star Trek? Oh, we need it for everybody. Except now it's R-rated, we can only have a select few members of an audience, because obviously kids can't go and see it and stuff. So what would be the point in it? And this is why my argument was always, it never needed to be this R-rated movie. You want R-rated Star Trek? Watch Alex Kurtzman's Star Trek, because that shit is R-rated. There's F-bombs in it. There's sex in it. Yes, there was literally a Klingon grape scene. And we practically had a nip slip in Starfleet Academy, except her boobages were pretty small, so it was kind of easy to hide it. But there was still pretty much a sex scene in it. You have the language, the violence, all this stuff, decapitated heads, eyeballs being ripped out. It's been R-rated since Discovery. That's not Star Trek. That'll never be Star Trek. The idea of an R-rated movie was the dumbest idea I think you could possibly have. But what do you guys think? Would you have been interested in seeing it? Do you agree that it would have been a stupid thing to do? And are you glad we're never going to get it? Let me know what you think about it all. And with that, I shall leave it there for this one. So do like and share and subscribe and all that good stuff. Cheers, and I shall catch you in the next one.